I'm sure there are some people saying, what's going on, Hat Man? How come you haven't wished everybody Happy New Year? How come you haven't made a Happy New Year video? Well, first of all, I'm not a very sentimental individual. So I'm not a sentimental type. I'm not a virtue signaler or anything like that. I'm not somebody who's whimsical, or what's the word I'm looking for? There's another word I'm looking for. Sanctimonious. That's the one. I'm not a sanctimonious type of individual. So if that's what you're looking for, you come to the wrong place. Personally, I don't celebrate birthdays. I don't celebrate Christmas. I don't celebrate New Year. And that includes my own birthday. I don't celebrate it. I don't see any reason to. I'm not disrespecting anybody who does. If you guys celebrate your birthday, New Year, Christmas, Hanukkah, Eid, all that kind of stuff, that's absolutely beautiful, amazing. I've got no issue with it. But me personally, as an individual, I haven't celebrated my birthday since, must have been as a teenager, maybe when I was 14, 15 was the last time I had a birthday celebration. I don't do birthday. Don't do New Year's. Don't do any of that. Okay, so that's just the way I am. Don't get offended. Don't get upset. I'm just not a very sentimental kind of person. Anyway, this is a story which came out over a month ago. Well, nearly a month ago now, December 11th. Freddie Roach said that Anthony Joshua has better boxing skills than Tyson Fury, but Fury will knock him out. This sounds like a very counterintuitive thing for Freddie Roach to say. Most people believe it's the opposite way round, that Fury has the better boxing skills than Anthony Joshua, and the only way for Joshua to beat Fury is by knockout. So I'm going to quote Freddie Roach here. Again, I know it's an old article, but people still want to hear my take on it. He said, quote, Tyson Fury can be a beast in the ring and go right at you strong, or he could come out as more of a boxer and outbox you. For this fight, I'd like to see him go out and pressure and batter Anthony Joshua. Pressure him early and beat him up. He won't do it, but I would encourage him to fight in his natural southpaw stance. He's a beast as a southpaw. Joshua's best chance to win is by using his boxing skills, since they are better than Tyson's. Anthony must dictate the pace and stay off the ropes. For both, distance will be important. I think Tyson wins this one by knockout. End quote. So, yeah, a lot of people taken aback because Freddie Roach, of course, has worked with Tyson Fury. He worked with him for the first Deontay Wilder fight. Knows him well. Was in his corner for that first Wilder fight. Excuse me. So why would he say Anthony Joshua has better boxing skills? Well, what I think he means, and I can only try and interpret, what I think he means is that Anthony Joshua, for example, is a better counterpuncher than Tyson Fury. You see, Tyson Fury, when he's using his height and reach, he's mainly just moving around and taking advantage of the fact that he's mobile and he's got longer arms than you. He's not really engaging you in a situation of, okay, you throw this shot, I slip, and then I hit you back with this counter. He's not doing that. And that's what some trainers refer to as actual boxing. Like, for example, Roy Jones. Roy Jones was a guy who many people say didn't actually box with you. You know, he wouldn't stand there at long range and say, okay, you throw this and I'll throw that. And I mean, he did a little bit of that. But for the most part, Roy Jones, as Manny Stewart said about him a long time ago, would fight like a very fast amateur. He would move around the ring and he would rely on his athleticism. He would add athleticism, and he would wait for an opportunity. He'd wait to see you fall off balance or overreach with a punch, and then he'd, attack you. So it was quite basic what he did. But because he was so incredibly athletically gifted in his prime, it worked, and it worked very, very well. Roy Jones Jr. did not have the hand skills, the counterpunching skills of a James Toney. He wasn't as sophisticated a fighter as a James Toney. But because he was so much more athletically gifted, he was able to nullify all James Toney's extra skills, his extra hand skills. So perhaps that's kind of what Freddie Roach is alluding to with Anthony Joshua. Maybe he believes that Tyson Fury, with his height and reach and the movement he has, can outbox people. But if he actually stands in center ring and tries to engage in a high speed, chess match where it's like, okay, you throw that shot, I'll slip and throw that shot. He believes Anthony Joshua is better in that scenario. Anthony Joshua absolutely is a better counterpuncher than Tyson Fury. There's no question about that. Anthony Joshua throws better long-range power shots. He's sharper with the power shots. He's better with them. They're more powerful. They're better delivered, etc. than Tyson Fury's power shots at long range and close range for that matter, and mid-range. Tyson Fury's advantage is with the reach at long range, with the jab, his fluidity. He's very difficult to hit. He's better defensively when he wants to be defensive. He's better defensively than Anthony Joshua. He recovers better from a shot than AJ. He's got a tremendous will. Tyson Fury, very, very strong will. Very confident individual. Very good boxing brain. Understands his ability. Knows what to do and what not to do. Very good ring IQ. Knows when he should throw certain shots and when he shouldn't. You see, so boxing is so much more than just having good hand skills. The ability to counter over an opponent's jab. Or if he's dropping his right hand a little bit, bang, lead left hook. Or setting him up for certain punches. Boxing is more than that. It's a very, very complex sport. And there's a lot of things involved. But if you're just talking about standing in the middle of the ring at mid-range or long range and seeing who can be the first to land a big right hand, not in an all-out slugfest, but just testing each other's sharpness and reflexes and seeing who can fake the other one out and leave themselves open for the opponent to land a good counter and all that kind of stuff. I suspect Freddie Roach is talking about that. You don't see Tyson Fury landing the kind of counters that AJ can land, the kind of lead left hooks that AJ can land. Remember it against Andy Ruiz in the first fight before AJ gets caught? The shots he's landing, you don't see Fury landing them kind of shots. Okay? So I suspect that's what he's talking about. Now, as far as Freddie Roach believing that Tyson Fury will knock Anthony Joshua out, it's certainly possible, especially right now, because AJ clearly, anybody who actually knows what they're looking at, and I know a lot of boxing fans don't, but anybody who actually knows what they're looking at, they would have seen the vulnerability in AJ in that Kubrat Pulev fight. From a mental perspective, he still looked a bit flustered up close. He still looked a little unsure of himself at times. And fighters pick up on that. So never mind me, some middle-aged guy on YouTube, some couch critic saying these things, seeing these things and saying these things. Anthony Joshua's opponents are seeing these things, people. So it's not the likes of me that you got to worry about if you're Anthony Joshua. It's the fact that his opponents are seeing the very same things that I'm seeing. They're seeing the vulnerability. They're seeing that he's still unsure of himself. And a guy like Tyson Fury, who is tremendously confident, he will smell blood. And not just him. A lot of the other wolves in the heavyweight division, same way. They'll smell blood if they're in the ring against Anthony Joshua and they see that kind of hesitancy. If they see that he's a little unsure of himself, they'll smell blood and they'll go for him. And maybe some of them will come unstuck going for him. But then again, maybe some of them will get through and it'll put him in a bad situation. So I think that Tyson Fury has the confidence to stop Anthony Joshua. I do think he has the punching power. But Tyson Fury is not the cleanest puncher when it comes to his power shots. And he's not the most prolific power puncher out there. So although I do think he could hurt and knock Joshua out if he caught him with the right shot, the chances of him catching AJ before AJ catches him with a big power shot, I wouldn't put my money on Fury doing that, to be honest with you. I'd put my money on AJ landing something significant, a real hard power shot, before Fury did. If they're both trying to assert themselves in the fight. Now, as far as Tyson Fury possibly fighting as a southpaw against AJ, that is probably the most interesting thing from a tactical point of view that Freddie Roach said. Pushing AJ back, okay, that's one thing. That comes with risk because AJ's a good counterpuncher. Very sharp with the power shots. But as a southpaw, interesting. AJ does have a good straight right hand against southpaws. Ask Charles Martin. But Charles Martin is no Tyson Fury. He's not as good, not as big, not as confident, not as slick. Now, Tyson Fury hasn't fought as a dedicated southpaw since when? The Derek Chisora rematch was probably the last time that I remember him doing it, where he fought long stretches of that fight as a southpaw. He hasn't done that since. Against Vladimir Klitschko, he only switched southpaw briefly for a few brief moments and messed around and then went back to orthodox. Against Deontay Wilder, did he do it at all in either Wilder fight? Not to my recollection. If he did, it was only briefly. Against, Tom Schwartz, he messed around as a southpaw. Otto Wallen, did he fight southpaw at all in that fight? I think it was predominantly orthodox. So why isn't Tyson Fury switching to southpaw as much as he did against the likes of Derek Chisora or even somebody like Martin Rogan back in the days? I think it has to be because he's not quite as confident in the southpaw stance as he is in the orthodox stance. It has to be that, or else he'd be doing just like Terence Crawford and switch hitting all the time, giving the opponents different looks. Sometimes if you're a switch hitter, you go in there and you think, okay, I reckon this guy is going to be able to get to me more if I'm a southpaw. So let me not even switch to southpaw at all. But Tyson Fury has fought a variety of different opponents. He hasn't just fought guys who have good right hands at long range. He's fought other guys. The Otto Wallens and so on. So, I tend to think that Tyson Fury isn't quite as confident. And this is not a dig at him because there are lots of fighters, even Andre Ward. Andre Ward, as great as he was, he used to fight southpaw a lot more when he was fighting journeymen and, fringe contenders. Once he moved up to the elite level, you hardly ever saw Andre Ward switch hit anymore. Okay, so it's a skill that some elite fighters have, but they're not confident enough to use it in most of their high-level fights. It's only rare talents like Terence Crawford that tend to do that. Most of them won't. And Tyson Fury appears to be like that as well. So Tyson Fury is a very bold, bombastic character. So I wouldn't put it past him trying something like that against Anthony Joshua. And maybe he will because he feels like it will take something away from Joshua if he does it. But if he's looking to walk AJ down, and I don't know actually. If he's walking AJ down, if he's walking AJ down out of a orthodox stance, AJ's going to be able to know and see the angles where he can land his counters, where he can preempt what Tyson Fury is trying to do. But if Fury's coming at him out of a southpaw stance, it might be a little disorientating for Anthony Joshua, So who knows? Maybe Tyson Fury will try to do that. Maybe Freddie Roach is onto something. It's just whether Fury has the confidence at the highest level to fight as a dedicated southpaw in an elite level fight. We'll see. But that's my interpretation of what Freddie Roach said in terms of him believing AJ has better skills than Fury. I don't think, here's the way I'll put it to sum it up. I don't think AJ has better skills than Fury. I just think he has different skills. Different skills. AJ is not as fluid as Fury. He's not as good on the back foot. His head movement isn't as good. He's not as slick. His footwork not as good. So both guys have strengths and weaknesses. I just think AJ's hand skills overall may be a bit more complex. Okay. He may be a bit better at landing sharp power shots at long range and close range and all that. But that's just a different skill set rather than a better skill set, you know. Maybe better in certain scenarios, but overall, it's just a different skill set rather than a better skill set. That's my take on it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm out. If you'd like to access all my boxing content advert-free and enjoy the convenience of listening via a podcast app with the option to download in high-quality MP3, then consider joining me on Patreon. In addition to the aforementioned perks, you'll also gain access to exclusive weekly live stream Q&A sessions and hangouts, as well as uncensored, no-holds-barred uploads, which are too blue for YouTube. This includes my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. We've also got a Discord server where you can come and chat and hang out with myself and other members. Just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called Hatman Boxing Extra. There's no contract, there's no commitment, it's only £2.50 a month, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of hardcore boxing enthusiasts by signing up with me here on Patreon today.